Captain Jake Miller stood on the bridge of the UNS Discovery and watched the massive space station grow larger through the main viewing screen. Harmony Point looked like a giant wheel spinning slowly in the darkness of space. Lights blinked along its outer rim, and ships from different worlds docked at various ports around the structure. This was the moment humanity had been waiting for since they first reached the stars. "Take us to Docking Bay 7, Jake told his pilot. The young officer nodded and carefully guided their ship toward the designated port. Jake could feel his heart beating faster as they approached. Today would mark the first official meeting between humans and the Galactic Cooperative. Commander Lisa Parker walked up beside him and checked her data pad. "All departments report ready for the diplomatic mission," she said. "Dr. Stone has his xenobiology equipment prepared and Maria has been working on the menu all week." Jake smiled at the mention of their head chef. Maria Santos took great pride in representing Earth's food culture and had spent countless hours planning what she called a proper welcome feast. "I hope our new friends will enjoy human cooking," he said. The ship shuddered slightly as the docking clamps engaged. Through the viewing screen, Jake could see alien beings moving about the station corridors. Some looked like walking crystals that reflected light in strange patterns. Others appeared to be made of flowing energy that shifted colors as they moved. They were plant-like creatures with leaves and branches instead of arms and legs. "Docking complete," announced Lieutenant Ben Hayes from the security station. "Station atmosphere reads normal for human life support." Jake straightened his uniform and took a deep breath. "Time to make history," he said to his crew. "Remember, we represent all of humanity today. Let's show them what we're made of." The airlock opened with a soft hiss and Jake stepped onto Harmony Point for the first time. The corridor was wider than those on human ships and the walls curved in gentle arcs. Soft music played from hidden speakers and the air smelled like flowers mixed with something he couldn't identify. A tall figure approached them from down the corridor. It looked humanoid but was made entirely of what appeared to be living crystal. The being's surface reflected the corridor lights and created rainbow patterns that danced across the walls as it moved. "Welcome to Harmony Point," the crystal being said through a small device attached to its chest. "I am Krista 9 Harmonies, speaking for the Zephyrian Collective. We are pleased to meet the humans at last." Jake stepped forward and extended his hand, then remembered that aliens might not understand human gestures. "I am Captain Jake Miller of the United Nations Ship Discovery. We are honored to be here." Krista 9 Harmonies studied Jake's outstretched hand for a moment, then carefully reached out with what looked like a crystal arm. When their hands touched, Jake felt a strange tingling sensation and heard a soft musical tone. "Your touch creates vibrations," Krista 9 Harmonies said with what sounded like wonder. "How fascinating. Please follow me to the meeting chamber." They walked through corridors filled with beings unlike anything Jake had ever imagined. A creature that looked like a walking tree with golden leaves nodded to them as they passed. Something that appeared to be made of pure light floated by overhead, leaving a trail of sparkling particles in the air. The meeting chamber was a large round room with a domed ceiling that showed the stars outside. 3 different types of aliens waited for them at a curved table. Krista 9 Harmonies took a seat that looked like it was carved from a single piece of diamond. "Allow me to introduce our other representatives," Krista 9 Harmonies said. "This is Root Singer of Dawn, speaking for the Verdani Growth Collective." The plant-like being swayed gently and its leaves rustled with a sound like wind through trees. "We greet the young species with joy," it said in a voice that sounded like creaking wood. "Your world produces much green life energy." The third alien was the most unusual of all. It looked like a cloud of glowing gas that constantly shifted between different colors. When it spoke, the voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I am Bright Thought Flowing of the Lumina Consciousness Stream," it said. "We have observed your species from afar and find your energy patterns most intriguing." Jake introduced his crew members as they took seats around the table. Dr. Kevin Stone immediately began asking questions about alien biology while Communications Officer Amy Walsh worked on improving the translation systems. Chef Maria Santos listened carefully as the aliens described their different methods of obtaining nutrition. The Zephyrians absorb minerals through harmonic resonance, Dr. Stone explained quietly to Jake. The Verdani photosynthesize like earth plants but can also absorb nutrients through their root systems. The Lumina feed directly on various forms of energy. For the next several hours, they discussed trade possibilities, shared scientific knowledge, and learned about each other's cultures. Jake was amazed by how different yet intelligent each species was. The Zephyrians created beautiful music by changing the frequency of their crystal bodies. The Verdani could grow tools and furniture from their own living matter. The Lumina could manipulate energy in ways that seemed like magic. As the formal meetings drew to a close, Jake decided to make his offer. "We would like to invite you to experience human culture through our food," he said. "Our chef has prepared a traditional Earth feast to welcome new friends." The three aliens looked at each other with what Jake hoped was interest. Krista 9 Harmony's crystal body chimed softly. "We would be honored to observe human nutritional customs," it said. Root Singer of Dawn's leaves brightened to a more golden color. "Learning of new life-sustaining methods brings wisdom," it agreed. Bright Thought Flowing pulsed with blue and green colors. "Energy exchange through consumption fascinates us," it said. "We accept your generous offer." Jake felt a surge of pride and excitement. This was going better than anyone had hoped. "Wonderful," he said. "Maria will begin preparations immediately. You can observe the cooking process if you're interested." "That would provide valuable cultural insight," Krista 9 Harmonies said. As they made arrangements for the feast, Jake couldn't help but smile. Humanity was about to take its place among the galactic community, and it would all start with a simple shared meal. What could possibly go wrong with showing these peaceful aliens how humans prepared food? The crew of the Discovery prepared to demonstrate the best of human hospitality, unaware that their idea of a welcoming feast would soon become the most terrifying experience these aliens had ever encountered. Maria Santos hummed quietly to herself as she moved around the Discovery's kitchen. The ship's galley was her domain, and she took great pride in every meal that came out of it. Today was special, though. Today she would cook for aliens from other worlds and show them the best of human food culture. She had planned the menu carefully over the past week. Fresh salmon that had been kept in the ship's stasis units, thick beef ribs that would fall off the bone when properly cooked, chicken wings with her grandmother's secret sauce recipe, and fresh vegetables from the ship's hydroponic gardens. It would be a feast that represented the diversity of Earth's cuisines. Dr. Stone stood nearby with his datapad, recording everything for the mission logs. "The aliens seem very interested in human food preparation methods," he said. "This could provide valuable insight into our species' development." Maria nodded as she pulled the large salmon from the cooling unit. The fish was beautiful, with silver scales that caught the kitchen lights and clear eyes that looked almost alive. "Food is how humans show love and friendship," she said. "When you invite someone to eat with you, you're welcoming them into your family." Through the kitchen's viewing window, she could see the three alien representatives watching with what appeared to be curiosity. Krista 9 Harmonies stood closest to the glass, its crystal body reflecting the kitchen lights in colorful patterns. Root Singer of Dawn swayed gently behind it, golden leaves rustling softly. Bright Thought Flowing hovered near the ceiling, shifting between blue and purple colors. "They've never seen anything like this," Dr. Stone observed. "Their species evolved completely different feeding methods. This is probably as alien to them as their energy absorption techniques are to us." Maria placed the salmon on her cutting board and selected her sharpest filleting knife. The blade was perfectly balanced and honed to a razor edge. She had been using knives like this since she was a child, helping in her father's restaurant. "The key to good fish preparation is respecting the ingredient," she explained to Dr. Stone while positioning the knife behind the salmon's gills. "You want clean cuts that preserve the meat's texture." She made the first incision with practiced skill, the knife sliding through flesh and bone with minimal resistance. Dark blood flowed from the cut and pooled on the cutting board. Maria worked quickly, separating the fish's head from its body with efficient movements. Through the viewing window, she noticed that Krista 9 Harmonies had stepped back from the glass. The crystal being's body was producing a soft ringing sound that hadn't been there before. Maria assumed it was some form of alien appreciation for skilled knife work. "Now we remove the organs," Maria continued, making a precise cut along the fish's belly. She reached inside the body cavity and pulled out the entrails, explaining to Dr. Stone how different parts could be used for stock or discarded depending on the recipe. Root Singer of Dawn's leaves had changed from golden to a darker brown color and seemed to be drooping slightly. The plant-like alien had moved further back from the viewing window. Maria figured it was probably just adjusting to the ship's artificial lighting. She began filleting the salmon with long, smooth strokes of her knife. The blade separated meat from bone with precision that came from years of practice. "You can tell good fish by how the flesh looks," she said, holding up a perfect piece of salmon. "See how it's firm and bright orange? That means it's fresh and healthy." The beef ribs came next. Maria had selected a particularly nice rack with good marbling throughout the meat. She explained to Dr. Stone how the fat would render during slow cooking, creating tender meat that would practically fall apart when touched. Humans developed cooking to make tough foods digestible, Dr. Stone said, making notes on his pad. The application of heat breaks down proteins and makes nutrients more available. Maria nodded as she began trimming excess fat from the ribs. "Cooking is chemistry," she agreed. "Heat changes the molecular structure of the meat and creates new flavors through the Maillard reaction." She noticed that bright Thought Flowing's color had shifted to a rapid strobing pattern of red and orange. The energy being was now hovering near the back of the viewing area. Maria hoped it wasn't having trouble with the ship's electromagnetic fields. The seasoning process was where Maria's artistry really showed. She had prepared a special rub for the ribs using salt, pepper, paprika, garlic powder, and several secret spices her family had used for generations. She worked the seasoning into the meat with her hands, massaging it deep into every crevice. The salt will draw out moisture initially. Then the meat will reabsorb it along with all the spice flavors, she explained. "It's like marinating from the outside in." Through the window, she could see that all three aliens had now moved to the back of the viewing area. Amy Walsh had joined them and seemed to be having some kind of conversation through her translation device. Maria assumed they were asking technical questions about human cooking methods. The chicken wings required a different approach entirely. Maria had learned this preparation method from a chef in New Orleans, and it never failed to impress. She started by separating the wings at the joints, explaining to Dr. Stone how understanding anatomy made the process more efficient. "You want to cut right through the cartilage," she said, positioning her knife at the joint. "If you hit bone, you're in the wrong spot." The knife sliced through with a wet sound, and Maria separated each wing into its component parts. She worked through the entire batch methodically, creating neat piles of drumettes and wingtips. Dr. Stone was asking questions about food safety and preparation techniques when Lieutenant Hayes entered the kitchen. The security officer looked concerned about something. "The aliens are asking some unusual questions," Hayes said quietly. "Something about whether this is a normal human activity or if it's some kind of ritual." Maria laughed as she began preparing her marinade for the chicken. "Tell them this is just regular cooking," she said. "Nothing special about it except that I'm trying to make it extra good for our guests." She mixed olive oil, lemon juice, garlic, herbs, and spices in a large bowl. The smell filled the kitchen with the aroma of Mediterranean cuisine. "The acid in the lemon will help tenderize the meat," she explained to Dr. Stone, "and the oil will carry the flavors into the chicken." As she added the chicken pieces to the marinade, Maria noticed that the viewing area was now empty. The aliens had apparently finished observing the preparation process and moved on to other activities. She felt a little disappointed that they hadn't stayed to see the actual cooking begin. "They're probably just giving you space to work," Dr. Stone suggested when she mentioned it. Different cultures have different ideas about personal space and work environments. Maria began heating her large cast-iron pan for searing the ribs. The metal rang with a clear note when she tapped it with her knife handle. "This pan belonged to my grandmother," she said. "Properly seasoned cast iron is the best cooking surface ever invented." The pan heated quickly, and soon wisps of smoke were rising from its surface. Maria carefully placed the seasoned ribs in the hot oil, where they immediately began sizzling and browning. The smell of caramelizing meat and spices filled the kitchen. "Now we let the Maillard reaction do its work," she said, watching the ribs develop a deep brown crust. "This is where the magic happens. The proteins and sugars combine under heat to create hundreds of new flavor compounds." Dr. Stone continued taking notes and asking questions about the scientific principles behind cooking. Maria was happy to explain everything she knew about food science while she worked. Teaching others about cooking was almost as satisfying as the cooking itself. As the ribs finished browning, Maria prepared to transfer them to the slow cooking unit, where they would spend the next several hours becoming perfectly tender. The feast was coming together exactly as she had planned, and she couldn't wait to see how their alien guests would react to their first taste of human cuisine. The ribs had been slow cooking for 2 hours when Maria decided to check on their progress. She opened the cooking unit, and the rich aroma of rendered fat and spices filled the kitchen. The meat was already beginning to pull back from the bones, which meant it was becoming properly tender. "Perfect," she said to Dr. Stone, who was still documenting everything. "Another hour and these will be falling apart. That's when you know the collagen has broken down completely." She lifted one of the ribs with her tongs to examine it more closely. The meat was dark brown and glistening with its own juices. When she gently twisted the bone, the meat moved with it, showing that the connective tissues were dissolving as intended. "The slow heat breaks down all the tough fibers," Maria explained, pulling the meat apart with her fingers to demonstrate. "See how it just falls into strands? That's what you want for proper barbecue." Dr. Stone made notes about the chemical processes involved in slow cooking, while Maria prepared the next part of the meal. She had fresh vegetables from the ship's gardens that would make a perfect stir-fry to accompany the meat dishes. She selected carrots, bell peppers, broccoli, and onions, arranging them on her cutting board by color. The vegetables looked fresh and vibrant under the kitchen lights. Maria picked up her largest knife and began cutting the carrots into uniform pieces. The knife blade sliced through the orange vegetable with satisfying precision. Each cut released the fresh, earthy smell of carrots and created neat rounds that would cook evenly. Maria worked with the smooth rhythm that came from years of professional cooking experience. "Proper knife technique is essential," she told Dr. Stone as she moved on to the bell peppers. "You want consistent sizes so everything cooks at the same rate." She cut the peppers in half and scraped out the seeds and white membrane with the edge of her knife. The pepper pieces fell away cleanly, revealing the bright flesh inside. Maria sliced each half into strips, the knife moving in steady, controlled motions. The onions required more care since they would release their pungent oils when cut. Maria halved the first onion and peeled away the papery outer skin. As her knife sliced through the layers, the sharp aroma filled the kitchen and made her eyes water slightly. "Onions contain sulfur compounds that are released when the cell walls are broken," Dr. Stone observed, wiping his own eyes. "It's actually a defense mechanism the plant evolved to discourage animals from eating it." Maria laughed as she continued dicing. "Joke's on the onion then, because we love the flavor. The more it tries to keep us away, the more we want it in our food." She finished cutting all the vegetables and heated her wok until it was smoking hot. A splash of oil hit the metal and immediately began dancing across the surface. Maria added the hardest vegetables first, listening to the sharp sizzling as they hit the hot oil. The broccoli came next, followed by the carrots. She kept everything moving with her spatula, tossing and stirring to ensure even cooking. The vegetables began to take on a bright, glossy appearance as they cooked. "The high heat seals in the nutrients and creates better texture," she explained while adding the peppers. "You want them crisp tender, not mushy." Finally, she added the onions and garlic, which would cook quickly in the hot oil. The kitchen filled with the complex aroma of caramelizing vegetables and aromatic spices. Maria added soy sauce, ginger, and a touch of sesame oil to finish the dish. Amy Walsh appeared in the kitchen doorway looking worried. "Maria, we might have a problem," she said. "The aliens are asking very strange questions about what you're doing in here." "What kind of questions?" Maria asked while plating the finished stir-fry. "They want to know if this is some kind of ritual preparation for warfare," Amy said. "And they're asking about human predator behaviors." Dr. Stone looked up from his notes with confusion. "Predator behaviors? We're just cooking dinner." Maria set down her spatula and looked at Amy with concern. What exactly did they see that worried them? "I'm not sure," Amy admitted, "but they seemed particularly disturbed when you were working with the fish and meat." Rootsinger of Dawn keeps talking about systematic destruction of life forms. Before anyone could respond, Lieutenant Hayes came running into the kitchen. "Captain Miller needs everyone in the main corridor right now," he said urgently. "The aliens are trying to leave the station." Maria wiped her hands on her apron and followed the others out of the kitchen. In the main corridor, she could see Captain Miller talking rapidly with the 3 alien representatives. All of them had moved as far away from the human crew as the corridor would allow. Crystalline Harmonies was producing a continuous high-pitched ringing sound that hurt Maria's ears. The crystal being's surface was flashing between different colors in rapid patterns that somehow conveyed extreme distress. Rootsinger of Dawn's leaves had turned completely brown and were drooping as if the plant was dying. The alien kept its root feet planted firmly away from the humans and swayed in what looked like defensive postures. Bright thought flowing was the most disturbing to watch. The energy being's form was shifting rapidly between red and black, with jagged patterns that looked angry and afraid at the same time. It hovered near the ceiling as far from the humans as possible. "What's happening?" Maria asked Captain Miller. "They're calling us predators," Jake said with bewilderment in his voice. "They say they witnessed ritualistic carnage and that we're too dangerous for contact." Maria felt her heart sink. "The cooking," she whispered. "They were watching me cook." Dr. Stone was already working on his data pad, pulling up information about alien psychology and cultural differences. "Of course," he said suddenly. "We should have realized this might happen." "What did we miss?" Jake asked. "The Zephyrians absorb minerals through harmonic resonance," Dr. Stone explained quickly. "To them, the systematic dismantling of complex biological structures would appear to be pure destruction. They can't understand why we would take apart something that took energy to build." Amy Walsh was working frantically with her translation equipment, trying to explain human dietary needs to the aliens. "The Verdani are plant-based," she added. "They just watched Maria systematically cut up vegetables. To them, it probably looked like torture of living beings." "And the Lumina feed on pure energy," Dr. Stone continued. "The concept of consuming matter that once held consciousness is probably horrifying to them." Captain Miller ran his hands through his hair in frustration. So our welcoming feast looked like a chamber of horrors. Through her translation device, Amy was picking up fragments of the alien conversation. "They're describing Maria as demonstrating killing techniques with obvious pleasure," she reported. "They think the feast was meant to show them human hunting prowess." Maria felt sick to her stomach. Everything she had done to show friendship and welcome had been interpreted as threats and violence. Her careful knife work looked like weapons training. Her joy in cooking appeared to be pleasure in destruction. "Can we explain that cooking is how humans show care and affection?" Jake asked desperately. "I'm trying," Amy said, "but their translators are having trouble with concepts that don't exist in their cultures. They don't have words for cooking or eating in the way humans do it." Crystalline Harmony spoke through its translation device, the words coming out in choppy mechanical tones. "Deathworld predators demonstrate systematic dismantlement techniques. Purpose unclear but appears ritualistic. Recommend immediate withdrawal from contact." "Deathworld predators?" Maria repeated with shock. Dr. Stone nodded grimly. "That's what they're calling us. From their perspective, we just demonstrated that we casually destroy complex life forms and apparently enjoy doing it." The three aliens were backing toward their docking ports, clearly preparing to leave Harmony Point as quickly as possible. Humanity's first contact with galactic civilization was ending in complete disaster, and it was all because of a simple dinner invitation. The three alien ships had sealed themselves in their docking bays and were running full security scans on the station. Emergency broadcasts in multiple alien languages filled the communication channels as word spread through the Galactic Cooperative about the dangerous predator species that had infiltrated Harmony. Point out Captain Miller stood in the station's communication center with his crew, watching their first contact mission fall apart in real time. The station commander, a four-armed creature called Administrator Flux Pattern 7, was fielding urgent calls from alien governments demanding explanations. "The Zephyrian High Council has declared humanity a potential threat to galactic peace," Administrator Flux Pattern 7 announced through the translation matrix. "The Verdani Growth Collective is recommending immediate quarantine of all human space. The Lumina consciousness stream has gone completely silent, which typically indicates extreme psychological trauma." Dr. Stone was working desperately with the station's xenopsychology department, trying to build cultural context that might salvage the situation. He had volumes of data about human evolution, dietary needs, and social customs spread across multiple screens. "We need to explain that humans are omnivores," he said to Amy Walsh, who was coordinating the translation efforts. "Our species evolved on a world where consuming both plants and animals was necessary for survival." Amy shook her head in frustration. "The translation matrix doesn't have equivalents for most human concepts. The word omnivore translates as universal destroyer in Zephyrian. Dietary needs becomes destruction requirements in Verdani." Maria Santos sat quietly in the corner, still wearing her cooking apron. She felt responsible for the disaster and couldn't stop replaying every moment of the food preparation in her mind. Every knife cut, every seasoning technique, Every expression of joy she had shown while cooking now seemed like evidence of human savagery. Lieutenant Hayes was monitoring the alien communications and providing security updates. The Zephyrian ship is requesting backup from their defense fleet, he reported. The Verdani are transmitting what appears to be warnings to other plant-based species. The Lumina ship is just sitting there with all systems on standby. Commander Parker was working with the station's diplomatic corps, trying to establish some form of dialogue that didn't immediately result in accusations of predatory behavior. We need to find common ground, she said. Something that shows humans aren't just mindless destroyers. Dr. Stone suddenly looked up from his research with excitement. I think I understand the core problem, he announced. Each alien species sees destruction and creation as completely separate concepts. They can't comprehend that humans destroy and create as part of the same process. What do you mean? Captain Miller asked. The Zephyrians grow by adding minerals to their crystal matrix, Dr. Stone explained. They've never had to break anything down to build something up. The Verdani photosynthesize and grow from sunlight and soil nutrients. They create without destroying. The Lumina feed on ambient energy without consuming matter at all. Amy Walsh was following his logic. So when they watched Maria preparing food, they couldn't understand that she was creating something nourishing from the raw ingredients. Exactly, Dr. Stone said. From their perspective, she was just systematically destroying complex biological structures for no apparent reason. And the fact that she seemed to enjoy it made it even more terrifying. Maria finally spoke up from her corner. Could we show them human agriculture? How we grow crops and raise animals? Maybe if they see that we create life as well as consume it, they'll understand. That's brilliant, Commander Parker said. We need to demonstrate the full cycle of human interaction with our food sources. Dr. Stone was already pulling up files from Earth about farming, animal husbandry, and sustainable food production. We have extensive documentation of human agricultural systems, he said. We could show them how humans have spent thousands of years learning to work with nature, instead of just taking from it. Amy Walsh began crafting a carefully worded message using the translation matrix. She had to be extremely careful with word choices since many human concepts had no alien equivalents or translated into threatening terms. I'm going to try explaining that the food preparation they observed was actually a form of human art, she said. A way of transforming raw materials into something that brings pleasure and nourishment. Captain Miller approved the approach. Send it with our agricultural documentation and request a chance to provide additional context. The message went out to all 3 alien ships simultaneously. For several minutes, there was no response. Then Crystalline Harmony's ship acknowledged receipt and requested additional information about human plant cultivation techniques. Dr. Stone quickly compiled data about crop rotation, soil management, and sustainable farming practices. Humans don't just take from the environment, he explained in his notes. We actively improve soil quality, create habitat for beneficial insects, and develop plant varieties that are more nutritious and resistant to disease. Rootsinger of Dawn's ship responded next, asking specifically about human relationships with plant life. Amy Walsh sent detailed information about gardening, forest conservation, and the human tradition of caring for plants as companions rather than just resources. The Lumina ship remained silent, but its sensors were actively scanning all the data being transmitted. Dr. Stone prepared additional information about the energy exchanges involved in human agriculture and food preparation. The key is showing them that humans exist in balance with our ecosystem, he said. We're not just predators who destroy everything we encounter. Commander Parker had an idea. What if we demonstrate instead of just explaining? Maria, could you prepare something that doesn't involve any cutting or processing? Something that shows the nurturing side of human food culture? Maria thought for a moment. I could arrange a fruit display, she said. Fresh fruits that are naturally ready to eat, arranged to show beauty and abundance. No knives, no cooking, just presentation of nature's bounty. Perfect, Captain Miller agreed. Dr. Stone, can you prepare documentation about human fruit cultivation? Show them how we've developed sweeter, more nutritious varieties through careful breeding rather than genetic manipulation. As the crew worked to present a different view of human food culture, the alien ships began responding with more detailed questions. The Zephyrians wanted to understand how humans could both destroy and create as part of the same process. The Verdani were curious about human methods of encouraging plant growth and protecting botanical diversity. Even the Lumina ship finally transmitted a question, asking about the energy exchanges involved in human emotional connections to food and cooking. "They're starting to see us as more than just predators," Amy Walsh reported with relief. "The translations are getting more accurate as the Matrix learns to handle human concepts." Dr. Stone had made a breakthrough in his research. "I think I can explain human cooking in terms they'll understand," he said. "Cooking is actually a form of energy transformation. We apply controlled heat and chemical processes to make nutrients more available and create new flavor compounds. It's construction, not just destruction." The key was presenting cooking as applied chemistry rather than violence. Humans had learned to use fire and tools to transform raw materials into more useful forms. Just like the aliens used their own methods to extract energy and nutrients from their environments. As understanding slowly began to replace fear, the possibility emerged that this disaster might actually become an opportunity for deeper cultural exchange than anyone had originally imagined. The breakthrough came when Dr. Stone managed to explain human food sharing as an energy exchange system. Using the station's advanced translation matrix, he described how humans express care and affection by spending energy to prepare nourishment for others. The act of cooking wasn't destruction but transformation, changing raw materials into gifts of sustenance and love. Amy Walsh worked for hours refining the translation algorithms to properly convey human emotional concepts. The alien languages had no direct words for many human feelings, but gradually the Matrix began finding ways to express these ideas through combinations of existing terms. "The Lumina are starting to understand," she reported to Captain Miller. "They're interpreting cooking as a form of energy art where humans transform matter into expressions of care for others." Maria Santos had spent the time creating a new kind of presentation. Instead of the meat and vegetable feast she had originally planned, she arranged fresh fruits, nuts, grains, and vegetables in beautiful patterns that showcased their natural colors and textures. "No cutting, no cooking, just the display of Earth's agricultural abundance. This shows what human cultivation can achieve," she explained to Dr. Stone, as she placed perfectly ripe peaches next to clusters of grapes and arrangements of colorful berries. "Every piece of fruit here represents generations of human farmers, working to create better varieties." The alien ships had stopped their emergency broadcasts and were now exchanging detailed cultural information with the human crew. Krista 9 Harmonies sent complex harmonic patterns that described Zephyrian appreciation for skilled transformation techniques. "They're saying that human knife work shows the same precision and artistry that Zephyrians use when shaping crystal formations," Amy translated. "They're beginning to see cooking as a craft rather than violence." Root Singer of Dawn transmitted detailed botanical information about Verdani agricultural methods. The plant-based aliens cultivated gardens that spanned entire continents, carefully managing ecosystems to support millions of different species. They were fascinated to learn that humans had similar goals on a smaller scale. "The Verdani are impressed by human crop rotation techniques," Dr. Stone reported. "They want to know more about how we improve soil quality and create beneficial relationships between different plant species." The most surprising response came from the Lumina ship. Bright Thought Flowing sent a complex energy pattern that the translation matrix struggled to interpret. When the meaning finally came through, it revealed a deep understanding of human social bonding. "The Lumina recognize cooking as a form of energy weaving," Amy announced with wonder. "They see how humans use food preparation to create emotional connections between individuals and strengthen community bonds." Administrator Flux Pattern 7 called the human crew to the main conference chamber, where the 3 alien representatives were waiting. This time, instead of cowering at the far end of the room, they had positioned themselves closer to the human delegation. Krista 9 Harmony spoke first, its crystal body producing soft, melodic tones. "We apologize for our initial fear response," it said through the translator. "We failed to understand that human destruction techniques serve creative purposes." Captain Miller felt relief wash over him. "There's no need to apologize," he said. "We should have provided better cultural context before demonstrating our food customs." Root Singer of Dawn swayed gently, its leaves now returned to their healthy golden color. "Human agricultural wisdom shows deep respect for growing things," it said. "Your species has learned to encourage life rather than simply consuming it." Bright Thought Flowing pulsed with warm, steady colors. Energy patterns in human food sharing indicate sophisticated emotional intelligence, it announced. Cooking rituals create positive feedback loops that strengthen social structures. Dr. Stone leaned forward with interest. We'd love to learn about your methods of obtaining nourishment, he said. Human science could benefit greatly from understanding how you process energy and nutrients. The aliens began describing their feeding methods in detail. The Zephyrians demonstrated how they used harmonic resonance to extract specific minerals from their environment, creating beautiful music while they fed. The Verdani explained their complex relationship with soil nutrients and sunlight, showing how they could produce tools and furniture from their own living matter. The Lumina's feeding process was the most fascinating. Bright Thought Flowing showed how they absorbed various forms of energy directly, converting heat, light, electromagnetic radiation, and even emotional energy into usable nourishment. Emotional energy? Maria asked with curiosity. Positive emotions produce energy patterns that we find nourishing, Bright Thought Flowing explained. Joy, love, satisfaction, and contentment all generate frequencies that enhance our well-being. Maria smiled as she understood the implications. So when humans share a meal and feel happy together, you can actually feed on that happiness? Indeed, Bright Thought Flowing confirmed. Your feast preparation ritual, once properly understood, would have provided us with abundant nourishment through the positive emotions it generated. Commander Parker suggested they proceed with a modified version of the cultural exchange meal. Maria's fruit and grain display would be the centerpiece, accompanied by detailed explanations of human agricultural methods and food culture. The aliens agreed enthusiastically. As they gathered around the table, Maria began explaining the origin and cultivation method for each food item. The peaches came from trees that humans had been developing for over 3,000 years. The grapes represented vineyards that had been tended by families for dozens of generations. Each bite carries the history of human cooperation with nature, she said, offering samples to the aliens who could safely consume plant matter. When we eat, we're participating in a relationship that connects us to the soil. The sun, the rain, and all the farmers who made this food possible. Crystalline Harmonies experimented with holding a piece of fruit, creating harmonic frequencies that revealed its molecular structure. The complexity is remarkable, it said. So many elements arranged in precise patterns. Root Singer of Dawn was fascinated by the grain samples, which contained seeds that could grow into new plants. Human agricultural techniques create beneficial mutations that improve nutritional value, it observed. Your species practices evolution guidance. As the cultural exchange continued, Bright Thought Flowing absorbed the positive energy generated by the gathering. The shared curiosity, growing friendship, and mutual respect created exactly the kind of emotional nourishment, the energy being found most satisfying. Dr. Stone documented everything for the mission reports while Lieutenant Hayes coordinated with the station administrators to establish permanent cultural exchange protocols. This first contact hadn't gone according to plan, but it had resulted in something even better than anyone had hoped for. Captain Miller made the formal announcement that would change human history. On behalf of humanity, I'm pleased to accept membership in the Galactic Cooperative, he said. We look forward to sharing our knowledge and learning from yours. The 3 alien representatives responded with expressions of welcome in their respective forms. Krista 9 Harmonies produced a complex musical pattern that would serve as humanity's official greeting song in Zephyrian culture. Root Singer of Dawn created a living sculpture from its own branch matter that would represent human agricultural wisdom in Verdani. Art, Bright Thought Flowing, generated an energy pattern that encoded the emotional significance of human food sharing. For the Lumina archives, as the day ended, Maria found herself planning menus for future diplomatic dinners that would include aliens with completely different nutritional needs. The challenge excited her. Food had always been about bringing people together, and now her kitchen would help bring entire civilizations together. The crew of the Discovery had achieved something unprecedented. They had not only made first contact with galactic civilization, but had done so in a way that highlighted humanity's greatest strength, the ability to create connections through the simple act of sharing a meal. Even when that meal had initially terrified their guests, the human instinct to nurture and care had ultimately won the day.